The death was a mess. Evidently, the fight between the victim and the murderer took place here. Blank papers are scattered everywhere, and the spilled ink has already dried. They don't seem to indicate anything. The hands of the clock pointed to the space between the number 9 and 10. Strange indeed. I had observed the clock before, and it worked perfectly.
之前我观察过这座钟，那时它走得还很准确。
Did the pendulum get hit? If so, maybe it can be used to reconstruct the time of the incident. No, in any case, it could only have happened during the short time I was gone. And judging by the position of the body, the conflict at the time of the murder couldn't have easily affected the clock. So why did the clock slow down? Clock's ticking. Found anything, Fuhua? I need another moment to put the clues together. Hurry, please. My colleagues are probably on their way here. Understood. But I would like you to provide information about the other people in the hotel, including guests and the manager. You may be disappointed, but there aren't many people in this hotel to begin with. 3 guests plus 1 manager, that's all. Aside from you in room 105, there's a gentleman in 106 and an old man in 111. None of you have seen Willie, so he probably enters through the back door or window. The manager at the front desk knew nothing useful. She said it was her first day filling in for the owner, her uncle, who had an accident while horseback riding. The gentleman in 106 is a painter, or so he claims. To find a quiet place to paint, he chose this remote hotel under her friend's recommendation. There's nothing unusual in his record. According to him, he did hear some muffled noises coming from the next room about a few hours ago. You can confront him about that testimony. I don't feel like he was talking nonsense. A few hours ago. At that time, I was the only one in the room, so that can be true, unless... No need to force the lie detector on him now. Let me try to solve the problem his way, something I learned recently. As for the old man in 111, he's a little confusing. I heard that he wanted to stay in the room closest to the staircase. He's here for an appointment he missed in his youth. Sounds like something a tall dart would do. The old man said that he'd been keeping an ear on the movement in the corridor and could not be sure when Willie Pa had arrived. He relied on his ears more than his eyes. The last one would be you. The manager said she didn't remember checking you in, but did claim you stayed here. Rather strange. It can't be helped. She does look unreliable. Plus, the gentleman in room 111 remembered the sound of your boots, and the young man in 106 testified that there was a weird noise in your room. Honestly, my imagination is running wild right now. I get what you're hinting at. But don't you worry. If I had my way, you wouldn't remember meeting me by now. Forget it. Anyway, before your colleagues arrive, I'll get to the truth. Just like all those cases my partner and I have cracked during the last few months. Think harder. The main questions remaining are: Within 5 minutes of my leaving, Willie's body suddenly appeared in the room. Also, he had injuries that would take a long time to cause. Generally, even a Valkyrie would have a hard time killing someone on such short notice and bringing the body in. Or could it be that the whole thing had happened over a longer period of time? Maybe Willie's body had been there for a while. But how could it have fooled me? Before breaking in, the door was locked and could not be opened with a key. That means the door was locked from inside. But there wasn't anyone alive in that room, so how did the door end up locked from inside? Besides, why would the person who did all this lock the door? How would that have helped them? There are 11 rooms in total. In addition to 105, room 106 and 111 are also occupied. They can give testimony about the staircase and the next door. It's all such a coincidence. But what it suggests? Wait a minute. I remember when I knocked on those two men's door to investigate, the order was... If that's the case, it was a misjudgment on my part for not cheat just now. This is room 105. 106. 107. 108.
喂，福华小姐。
Hey, Miss Fu Hua, what's the matter? And then, from here. 1, 2, 3, 4.
原来如此，这下完全明白了。
So that's how it is. It's all clear to me now. A trick like this, simple but effective.
但却非常有效。
Inspector Henry caught up to her, panting like a dog. For a second, I thought you would run
有那么一
away.
瞬间，我还以为你想一走了之。
Where to begin? Not long ago, we found the body of the fugitive Willie Paul in room 105. As a guest in room 105, I'm the natural
作为105
suspect.
号房的住客，我理所当然要承担嫌疑。
But what if, even from your point of view, I shouldn't be suspected of anything? I'm the one living in the room, and the victim was found there. What if it's not the truth? I can prove it from at least 3 angles.
我可以从至少3个角度来辩驳这一点。
I had paid the clock in my room some attention before, and it was accurate. But there was something wrong with the time on the clock in this room where the body was found. Ruling out accidental collisions, obviously the clock did not keep good time to begin with.
也就是说，
They are not the same clock. On the table at the scene, I found Willie's ferry tickets, notes, cash, and other random things.
等乱七八糟的东西。
Well, since Willie was there in the first place, it's not a big deal to find his things.
因为在
I
我离开
beg to
房间以
differ.
前，桌子
This
还
is
是空的。
because the table was empty before I left the room. If Willie had sneaked into my room, he had no reason to leave the stuff here, unless he didn't think it was someone else's room. Until I left the room, I was writing a letter at my desk using the ink on the desk. I can even find a newsboy to vouch for me. But now that bottle of ink had toppled over, and the splashed ink had solidified. Who can make an entire bottle of ink solidify in just a few minutes? The answer can only be that they are not the same bottle of ink.
那么答案只能是，他们不是同一瓶墨水。
Put all the above together, the answer can be more obvious. The room where we found the body wasn't actually 105, where I stayed. To be precise, it's 107, symmetrical to mine. The inspector made a sharp inhale. It's easy. The hotel corridor is originally circle, where simply reinserting the paper door plates in reverse order is enough to mislead me, who is basically a stranger here. As a result, 105, the fifth from the left, became 107, 107 became 105. So you're saying you walked into the wrong room just because someone switched the room number? What if you happen to go to the right way? Besides, didn't you check room 107 too? Wasn't that supposed to be your room? It does sound a little weird, but that's because I had other commitments right now and didn't want to leave any traces in my room. In other words, it was a deception tailor-made for me, who was used to covert operations, and the killer did something else. He first misled me to the entrance of the corridor, then asked me to count back from 11. Counting number backward made me lose my awareness of the original room numbers. Both 105 and 107 are located deep within the building. Considering it was late at night, when people are less sensitive to details, chances of mixing up is significantly high. Finally, the murderer himself stood at the door of 107 and told me as a police officer it was 105, which completes the last step of the misdirection. I'm sorry, Inspector. You're the one who switched room numbers while I was posting the letter. In this way, you lured me to room 107, where the body really was. As for the other guest, room 106 is located at the center and wouldn't change. 111 and 101 are very close, and the old man with poor eyesight only cared if his room is next to the stairs. If an investigation happened later, both the unreliable manager and me, who's not legally accountable, will be far more suspicious than you. By misleading us, you could avoid any social repercussion. No, that's not true, Fu Hua. You can't suspect me without rhyme or reason. There is a reason, and I have a way to prove it. The one thing that really puzzled me about the whole thing is that why you locked the door to the fake room. But combined with what you were doing, I understand now. If it had not been locked, I'd have found the key didn't fit and know the room had been switched. So you needed to lock the door to give yourself a reason to break in. Your real goal is to break the lock so I wouldn't know it was actually room 107. In other words, 107 now is my original room, the one right in front of us. Therefore, if the key in my hand happens to be able to lock this door. Finishing her words, Fu Hua turned around and inserted the key into the lock hole. However, before she heard the distinct click of locking, I surrender. The outcome was already clear. After that, the policeman who received the urgent telegram took Inspector Henry away. According to him, he followed Willie on the hot pursuit and finally, with the intel from the informant, found his target in the hotel. Eager for promotion, he interrogated Willie by force to find out the whereabouts of his other accomplices, but accidentally killed him as a result. After that, he happened to see the Schicksal Valkyrie come to the same hotel and then came up with a whole series of tricks. Apparently, he was not a law-abiding detective to begin with. The illegal use of firearms is prohibited by the British police, but he tried to break the lock by firing a gun. He thought naively that in order to accomplish my mission, I would not care about the life of a man like Willie and would simply choose to bury it. But she cared. However, saying that he came up with the whole plan himself, that's definitely a lie. By cheating, I confirmed this theory. Inspector Henry had definitely crossed paths with Moriarty, and perhaps the whole thing had been orchestrated by the latter. Maybe he just accidentally killed someone and Moriarty swooped in. But it makes no difference. Every detail of the strategy that would only work under a particular combination of circumstances was part of Moriarty's plan. The owner of the hotel who fell off the horse, the guests who were tricked for various reasons, the fraudster who chose to hide here, the police who got the information from the informant, and even the fact that the deceased easily died from forced confession itself. How much of it was actually orchestrated? And could it be that the whole point of this was to delay Fu Huan and distract her from pursuing Moriarty? Or was he simply playing a game? A shiver ran down Fu Hua's spine at that thought. That was his style, but... Wait.
等一下，
If Moriarty had planned it off, he had to know that I was staying here and my itinerary, as well as the way I was staying.
还要了解我的行程。
Could he have seen the letter I wrote?
看过我写的信，
Impossible, since I just had it delivered before I met the
我刚刚才
inspector.
看清楚，转身
Do
回
I
来就
have
遇
to
到了那个
assume that
探长。
Moriarty had been following me all this way?
我只能认为，莫里亚蒂一直就在跟踪着我。
In that instant, Fu Hua thought he saw Moriarty's silhouette as clear as day. The newsboy, he knew I was here, waiting by the door for me to finish the letter. Only he had the time and condition to come up with this ruse, and to throw it as a lifeline to the inspector who had accidentally killed someone. Wait, that's to say, that child is actually Moriarty. Seriously.
本人，一个孩子。
No, on second thought, that wasn't strange at all. A body of Solian had great plasticity in nature. Therefore, changing the appearance to be a child wouldn't be impossible for him. After all, nearly no one had ever seen Moriarty's real appearance, and taking the form of a child served as a natural disguise to mislead Fu Huan and Otto. And this body was even more convenient than adults. He could escape through a hole in the surrounded carriage, or he could pose as a victim and infiltrate a child trafficking organization to keep orders. Yes, this must be the truth.
这就是真相。
Too late to contact the real detective now. This time, Fu Hua was positive that he had finally reached Moriarty. Should she tell the local police to track the newsboy immediately? But with his ability... Wait.
等等，
I remember the postcard he had in his hand when I met
他手里拿
him.
着的明信片，
If that's the next address he's
如
going
果那是他
to,
准备前往的
if
下一个
he's
地址，
provoking me with that...
那就是他的挑衅。
The Reichenbach Waterfall.
瀑布。
Time flew by. More than 100 years have passed since the famous showdown, which has long been celebrated in the annals of world detective literature. And the two people who are the original models of the protagonist and antagonist have long since parted ways, in the truest sense of the term. When they meet again, will they remember the incident on the night before the showdown? Or could it be, from the perspective of this cunning revenge seeker, what's inside now is the very real vendetta, or just a straightforward goal, like it's a game? Coming back to the present, the Avenger who claimed to be artist looked from a distance as his old friend was surrounded by monsters. He even made pretentious comments time to time. This was his favorite way of doing things. He didn't show up before the other party and hid in the shadows where he had the best seat to admire the show he had intricately planned. Oh, it's really nice to see you're doing well, my dear detective. You're determined, confident, and tenacious. Once you have your eyes set on the target, you'll get there no matter what. Just like every pioneer that people have admired throughout the ages. In my opinion, this is your greatest strength. It deserves the highest praise. You know, I'm not afraid to acknowledge my opponent's advantages. After all, with sufficient research, a person's greatest strength is more often than not also his Achilles heel. Like most fish, they can hardly drown indeed, but they can never live without water. 100 years ago, after a pursuit across several countries, we finally met at Leichenbach, and now you have also followed the traces I left and helped me open the forbidden area. That one-track mind of yours has really done me a huge favor. So, how about we wait and see what happens next? Out of etiquette, I prepared a grand reunion party for our beloved detective. Let's see, who will be the one being pushed down the fall this time? Grisil, tell me the truth. How are you feeling? I haven't recovered much of my combat abilities. If necessary, I will do my best. No, don't push yourself. Protect the Vitas and help me find those monsters' weaknesses. This type of monster is very special. They could affect my stability as a holo projection. Don't underestimate them. And they didn't do anything this time. Someone might be giving them orders from the shadows. An accurate judgment. You must be the rumored Fuhua. As they say, you are reliable in all aspects. No wonder the other Vitas trust you so much. You are.